What's up guys, we got some new IEMs again, and hopefully this is the last batch for this year. But yeah, let's just get into it. Let's start off with the T Pro SEs. Starting with the overall sound, the T Pro SEs are very different from the original T Pros. The OGs were, bassier, thicker, it's got that slam, it's got the body, and it's got a slight bite when it comes to the vocals and the upper mids. The SC version is very different. This is more like the Hype 4 Mark IIs, a lot more balanced. It has more treble air. Overall, not nearly as bassy. So if you were hoping for something that was, equally as thick and heavy in the low end, but just like more refined in the higher frequencies, then these are probably not it. But that doesn't mean the SC isn't good, because out of the most recent kind of releases from the Mega 7, the Hype 4 Mark IIs, and even the Horizons, I think these are the best balance kind of set between having enough bass but also having a good amount of treble air, great technicalities. Overall, very balanced, very clean, but not completely water and neutral like the Mega 7s. The low end texture is still good. You actually feel the bounciness, the punchiness in the sub bass pretty nice. It's obviously not going to be as impactful, authoritative as the original T Pros or even the original Hype 4s, Estrelas. These are not a bassy low end set, but you get enough bass, it's punchy enough, it's still pretty fun. But I wouldn't call this like a low-end specialist. It's good, it's enough, it doesn't get in the way. The vocals are also relatively the same. It's good, it doesn't get in the way. They're open, they're extended, they're clean. They are very enjoyable, as well as the treble. It's a lot smoother actually than the original T Pros. It doesn't have that bite and kind of like sharpness to it. This is a lot smoother, I would say, but also airier and slightly brighter leaning in the treble. But overall, this just comes off as, a cleaner sound. The green plating kind of matches the vibe. It is pretty clean, it's refreshing. Now, when it comes to technicalities, these are around the same as the Top Pros, maybe slightly behind them because the imaging, the transients are not as sharp and quick as the Top Pros, but they are fuller. If you missed some of that mid bass on the Top Pros, the SC, as in like a tiny bit more mid bass, tames down the vocals. So the overall sound feels a little bit more balanced, a little bit fuller, not as clean and mid-range and vocal centric as the Top Pros, but instead these come off as a bit smoother, less sparkly in the treble, more airy. These, I believe, are around $50 cheaper than the Top Pros. So overall, value to performance, these are very good. Basically, if you want more pop in your vocals and your mid-range, you want a little bit more of that clarity and slightly more sparkliness to the vocals, then I would still go with the Top Pros. They are more or less around the same when it comes to the tech, but the SC kind of fares better when it comes being like an all-rounder set. It's a little bit fuller. I would pick these as the better all-rounders, whereas the Top Pros are more of a cleaner vocal set. Now, scaling wise, these don't scale as well as the original T Pros. They just have a lot more energy. It doesn't have the same amount of low end to kind of balance it out. It just doesn't scale as well. These are a mid volume set. The T Pros originally are around mid to high volume, like 75, maybe 80 dBs. These are, we are looking at around like 65 to 75 dBs on just like slower songs. And then if you're trying to, put K-pop, J-pop, energetic EDMs, these sit around 60, 65, maybe 70, just because of the boost in the treble. Genre-wise, these are more of an all-rounder, so they work good for most tracks, but I would recommend them more for like slower rock, R&B, slower pop stuff. You got your indies, acoustics, alternatives. I wouldn't really pick these for, hip-hop, rap, EDM. They sound okay on them, but I feel like it could use better scaling and more low-end, maybe a little bit less treble energy. But yeah, I would take the original T Pros, original Hype 4s, Estrelas, bassier sets. Overall though, these work pretty good for most genres. Just don't crank it up too much. Tip wise, I am using the soft ear ultra clears because they grip my ears the best. The stock black ones kept falling out. They were a little bit slippery. You can also use the white stock ones. Like anything that sticks into your ears and that doesn't fall out, that fits your ears well, will work. I wouldn't recommend like treble boosted tips like clarions. Aside from that, most tips will work on these. Then versus the Hype 4 Mark IIs, the Hype 4 Mark IIs are a little bit more technical. They are also cleaner, less full, more airier. They are, brighter. The transients are a little bit sharper. The overall attack also a little bit sharper on the Hype 4 Mark IIs. When it comes to technical performance, I don't think you can get a better, value than the Hype 4 Mark IIs, but the trade-off is that when it comes to tonality, the SEs overall are more balanced. The male vocals come across as more natural. The female vocals aren't as thin, you know, and they're not as light. So if you want like a more natural tonality, better balance in the overall sound, you don't mind a slight hit to the technicalities, then I would go with the SCs. Whereas if you like that treble leaning, you know, slightly bright, kind of OCD, very technical, very detailed kind of approach, then the Hi-Fi Mark IIs are still one of the best bang for your buck IEM that you can get right now. Now versus the Mega 7, these two are very similar. If you look at the graph, if you just listen to them, they are very similar. The main difference is that the Mega 7 come off as a little bit smoother, a little bit more vocal and mid-range focus, and then the SC is a little bit more treble leaning, has more air, has a little bit more extension when it comes to the treble. I would say when it comes to dynamics and contrast, the SCs are slightly better than the Mega 7, whereas the Mega 7 is the more neutral. I lean a little bit more to the SCs because of the extra treble extension, the air, the micro nuances in the cymbal crashes, just like the splashiness, slightly better on the SCs, whereas the, you know, Mega 7 sounds a little bit too watery to me. And these are a little bit more dynamic overall. These feel a little bit more musical than the Mega 7 with around the same technical performance. Then versus the Rockies, I'm not sure if you can still get the Rockies, but basically the Rockies have a more misty and smoother feel to the treble. It's got the EST kind of tonality to it. These are just going to be more dynamic, livelier, slightly more V-shaped than the Rockies. It has more bass, has more treble. Technical performance wise, these are around the same as the Rockies actually, so very good for the value. But the main difference is that if you haven't tried ESTs before, I would still recommend go for the Rockies because they are a very good price for around like 500 bucks. If you haven't tried it, get the Rockies. If you have and you're looking for something just more balanced, more bass, more low end, but still pretty, you know, airy in the treble, still very technical, then these would be the better options. In terms of brightness, I would say the Hi-4 Mark IIs are still the brightest and most treble leaning, and then you got the SCs and the Top Pros around the same. Maybe the Top Pros slightly sparklier than these when it comes to the treble, and then you got the Mega 7s. So when it comes to overall energy, these fall in a pretty nicely balanced sound. I wouldn't say they're as energetic and I guess like controversial as the Hi-4 Mark IIs. I think most people will find these to be pretty smooth overall as long as you are not cranking the crap out of these. In conclusion, the T Pro SCs are a more technical, cleaner, and better balanced version of the T Pros. If you are looking for that thick, bassy sound on the original T Pros, these are not it. These are more similar to the Hi-4 Mark IIs, to the Mega 7s, to the Top Pros. Overall, value is also very good. I would say it's probably second only to the Hi-4 Mark IIs, only because that set is kind of like an anomaly. The build is also very nice. It's metal. The plating is very beautiful. You get a color matching green interchangeable cable, as well as a nice premium feeling leather case. Very compact, very well built. Definitely give these a shot if you're looking for something that is balanced but still airy enough in the treble. After the T Pro SCs, we're going to do some quick speed runs and a quick review on the new IEMs. Starting with the TANGZU Xuetao. This is not a gaming IEM. I don't know why they market it as a gaming IEM. Just because you have a mic doesn't mean it's good for gaming. These are a bassy, warm leaning, smooth sound. They don't work very good when it comes to most games because the bass, the low end's a bit muddy, it's a bit bloated, you don't hear much of the guns, the footsteps, you don't hear much of the details, and the separation isn't that great. So not ideal for gaming. Again, I don't know why they recommend this as a gaming IEM, but if you want something that is warm, bassy, smooth, these are a enjoyable set. Now price wise, these are around $50, probably because of the extra upcharge on the mic, but you can definitely find cheaper stuff at the same, like, you know, bassy warm sound signature. For example, if you go around 20 bucks, you got the QKZ HBBs. If you go a little bit more around the same, you got the Confined Cleans, which are in my opinion a better, more technical version, more resolving version of this for cheaper as well. So overall sound, it's okay, right? It's a warm bassy set. The separation, the imaging, the vocals don't pop out as much. I wouldn't really recommend this again for gaming, and there's just better alternatives at this price range. The Clean, even the Inawaken Dawn amps for a, you know, more bassy sound signature, those would do that better. These does scale better than them, but you can also get the KIWIEARS Ballet for around $30, like 25 to 20 on sale. So this is a bit pricey for what you're getting. The tech isn't that great. It's a little bit too bassy for gaming, not that great when it comes to the overall spatial cues. I would say this is a maybe if you can find these on sale for around like $25. It's just the pricing is a bit too high for what you're getting. You can get better warm bassy sets for cheaper, or even, you know, better tech for around the same price. Next, we got the SIVGA Nightingale Pro, and mine got a horrible channel imbalance. I even tried to cope by switching the cables, but didn't help, so I had to kind of readjust that with a software. But that aside, these sound very neutral, bright leaning, sparkly, lots of air, you know, good separation, good tech, good detail, and I'll say they punch competitively for the price when it comes to resolution, you know, technical performance, separation, imaging, stuff like that. The only downside is that these have no low end like quantity at all. There's a sub bass throw off. It's not very good when it comes to hip hop, you know, even R&B, EDM, you know, rap, anything with like sub bass or even some mid bass. These are gonna be too lean. They're not shouty because the vocals are tame. It's just that there is no bass for these. So for those of you guys who have libraries like, you know, pop, hip hop, R&B, K-pop, J-pop, which is a lot of you guys, these are probably gonna be a pass just because there is no sub bass. I guess you could EQ these, but at the price of like $300, I don't really know why you would just EQ these when you can get something cheaper. Unless your library is only like ballads, indie, acoustics, anything that doesn't need mid bass or sub bass. So even rock bands, metal, punk would not work well with these because there is not that much mid bass for the guitars or the drums. And K-pop, J-pop definitely a skip. Very energetic, artificially bright, because there's no balance in the low end to kind of like cover up the extra energy, right? So even though it is pretty technical, well layered, very clean, neutral, bright leaning set, you know, sparkly, these are just very niche. So overall, a pass for most people, and maybe for a certain few, those, you know, that matches the library on these. Then for our final recent IEM, we got the HEARTFIELD Elephant, and these are a V-shape IEM. They have that older V-shape tuning. For $130, these are definitely overpriced, even though, you know, the build is okay. It's not metal anymore. They kind of removed the fancy factor to reduce the price. I would say it's a little bit peaky, not that smooth. It's dynamic, I guess you can say, because it's a V-shape, and you do get a metal case, but overall sound, you can find better stuff for like $20-30 with the clean, right? So, you know, Lua Ultra, if you want a slightly more dynamic, slight V-shaped sound. These are just outdated when it comes to tuning, and they are priced way too high at $130. Again, these should be under like $50, ideally $35 for the sound that they're offering. So yeah, I would pass on these unless again you can find these for like a steep sale for under $50. Then finally, we're gonna speed run and rank some of the recent IEM, and starting with the SUPERMIX 5. I would say wait for these to go on sale because they sound fine, you know, they're clean, they're balanced, they're relatively smooth, they fix the issues with Harman 2019. It's an all-rounder, it's, you know, it does the job. It's not very unique in the sound, I would say, and the price is a bit high at $220. They should be around $150 in my opinion, and the bone conduction driver is also not that prominent since the SUPERMIX 4 exists for like a lot cheaper and better, in my opinion, better technicalities as well. I'm gonna say wait for these to go on sale at around $150. Next, we got the Hype 4 Mark IIs. These are going right to the top tier because in terms of value to performance, in terms of technicalities, these are the best you can get at around $400. The only main drawback is that the treble can be a little bit too much depending on your ears and your genre, you know, your music. And then the low end wise, some people might like more bass, you know, better impact, thicker sound, fuller sound. But aside from that, if you just want the best performance, at $400, you're not gonna be able to beat these. These punch like way above its price at around like 1K. Then after those, we got the Mega 7, and originally I thought these were water, but after hearing the DUNU 242, these are upgraded to soda water because the DUNU 242 is actually water. That thing is like straight up dead. Overall, these are still decent if you can find them on sale because they are very smooth. It's just that for me personally, I would like a little bit more excitement, a little more dynamics to the sound, and I would take the T-Pro SEs over these in terms of like overall balance, overall tonality. Even though these are still very smooth, if you want something smooth, these are a good pick, but I will wait for these to go on sale. But speaking of the DUNU 242s, these are actually water. They make the Mega 7 look like a Slurpee because if you just look at the graph, I don't know which version that I got, but these are just straight up neutral, straight line, I guess like well balanced. It's decent in the technicalities. It doesn't wow you in the treble, it doesn't wow you in the vocals. doesn't wow you in the bass. There is no bass, so not very good when it comes to like hip-hop, EDM, R&B, even K-pop, J-pop. I guess you could use these for monitoring, but then again, I would just buy speakers. So yeah, I'm gonna say a pass for most people. Value wise, these are not that great. As for the 142, these are a little bit better. These are basically a more forward and slightly sharper version of the Astros. They are cheaper than the Astro, like $50 cheaper, but overall tonality wise, they sound a little bit, I won't say a little bit shouty, a little bit peaky, because the Astros sometimes already could get a little bit peaky, and this just added more boost to the vocals, a little bit more like cleaner in the mid bass. Tonality, I would still go with the Astros, the Crescents. So overall, I would say wait for these to go on sale, because even though the tech is still pretty good, it's around the same as the Astros, it's just the balance, the vocals are a little bit shoutier now, even sharper overall than the Astro, which could already get a bit sharp. Then after those, we got the JUZEAR Harrier. These are gonna be a wreck when it goes on sale, because the overall tonality is very nice, pretty natural when it comes to instrumentals, you know, acoustics, you got your woodwinds, you got your strings, but you do need to like scale them up. You gotta crank them up, because at mid to lower volume they sound kind of dead. When I first tried them, I'm like, where is the detail? But overall, at the price right now, stock around 300, I would say it's not the best technical wise. You can find better stuff. You know, you got the Hi-4 Mark IIs, you even got the older stuff like the Dusty Pilgrim, you got the SUPERMIX 4, the Chopin. Get these for around like 250, 260. That would be a pretty solid price. They are pretty musical. They are, you know, enjoyable. They're smooth. The stage is pretty wide, even though it could use more depth. It could use more treble detail, more detail and transients overall. But like as a high scaling set, they are immersive, and I do like the sound. It's just that at the stock retail price, it is a little bit pricey. Next, we got the TANCHJIM FOLA. These are gonna be a pass, because you can get the Nora, you can get the TANCHJIM for you can get the Fission. They all sound very similar, even though there's like a slight difference with the DMT5 versus the DMT4s. And overall, value-wise, the Fission is a lot better. You can get the Fission for around like $100. Unless you can get these for around like $150, these are gonna be a skip, just because TANCHJIM's own lineup kind of cannibalizes, you know, the FOLA. You know, you got the Fission, which basically sounds the same and has the same driver, just not as fancy. So because of that, wait for these to go on sale. Otherwise, just skip these. Next, we got the TANGZU and ALBA collab, the Blanc Noir. These are gonna be a skip for most people, unless you can find these for less than $100. The build is nice, the cable is nice, case is pretty nice. It's just the sound is outdated. It's basically a shoutier version of Harman 2019. I don't know why they decided to go for that. I mean, I guess it is pretty technical, but you know, it just sounds very unnatural, very sharp, very shouty, a bit thin, a bit like too forward in the overall, you know, vocal presentation. And then the treble roll off also doesn't help. It's not very airy. There's also not that much texture to the bass, the impact, the low end, the rumble, the sub bass, it's all not there. So yeah, skip unless you can find these at a steep discount under $100. Next, we got the HIBY YULAs. These are a slight V-shaped sound. The fit is very comfy. It kind of reminds me of the MEZE ALBAs, and then the cables is also pretty nice for the price. It's just that the sound to me feels a little bit outdated. It's like a older slight V-shaped sound. The pricing is not bad, it's around $50, but I would say wait for these to go on sale for around like $20-25, because the Alua Ultra is basically a better version of this. It does what the YULA is trying to do, but a little bit better. It has more detail, it's better extended, it's smoother, it's less peaky. It's just that the build, the cable, not as good as the YULA, which is why, you know, I would still say it's decent if you can find these on sale for around the same as the Alua Ultras. If not, probably a skip. Next, we got the Punch Audio PORTAZOs. These are a bass head set. They are a mini HBB Punch, mini Martillos. They have that slammy, bass head, rumbly, impactful, kind of low end sound to them. Main difference is that it's not as technical, not as well balanced, extended in the upper mids and the treble as the Martillos and the Punch, but it is cheaper, and overall I would say it is smoother and scales a little bit better because it has less energy. Although in terms of value, they are very similar sound wise to the Legatos and the Diablos, and you can get the Legatos for less than $100. You can get Diablos for around 100. So I'm gonna say they are more technical than them, but for almost 200, it's a bit pricey. If you can get these on sale for around $150, I would say these are still pretty fun, pretty enjoyable. But anything higher, close to 200, I'm gonna say probably wait and get these on sale. Then lastly, we got the KIWIEARS Orchestra 2. These are a cleaner, vocal-centric, balanced kind of sound. They are not that good for hip-hop, R&B, EDM, because it just doesn't have enough in bass. It doesn't have enough of that sub-bass rumble that a lot of you guys are looking for. So type 4, you know, OGT Pros, Estrellas are all going to be better in that sense. But if you're looking for a cleaner vocal centric sound with still some dynamics in the vocals, like they are not as water as the Mega 7 and the DUNU 242s, they are on the same price as the 242s. I would take these over the 242 any day of the week. And then Mega 7, you know, it's a toss up depending if you want a smoother sound or if you want something that, you know, pops a little bit more in the vocals. You can choose one or the other. Moving on, we got the MEZE ALBAs. Now these are not necessarily a new IEM, but the most recent unit that I've got is different than the ones that came out a year ago. I don't know if it's just my unit, but my unit is very smooth. It's clean, it's balanced, it's got enough fullness of the sound, and overall it's just a very natural sounding IEM, pretty musical. And the main, I guess, like selling factor is that the build, the fit is super comfy. These are probably one of the most comfy IEMs that I've tried. And then on top of the smooth sound makes these a very good IEM for EQ if you're willing to EQ these. Now, stock wise, they are a, you know, balanced sounding set. I wouldn't say they are very sparkly, dynamic, you know, super sharp any transients, but overall very smooth sound, and they do cost $160. In terms of value, I wouldn't say they are a value monster like the SUPERMIX 4. The SUPERMIX 4 overall still feels a little bit more engaging, slightly sharper in transients, dynamics feel more contrasty, you know, there's more sub bass, you get more of a energetic playback. These are smoother, more laid back, and I think these are still worth it on sale, assuming that you're getting the same sound, the same tuning that I've got on this unit. I don't know about the previous ones because they are slightly different than mine, but yeah, I would say on sale for around like $80, $100. These are still a solid IEM. Then after the ALBAs, we got some new KZ IEMs. We got the new DUONIC, we got the GALE, and then we got the VADER Pros. I like the DUONIC the best. They remind me of the CCA trios, but a little bit less shouty in the vocals, a little bit, you know, less sub bassy and better balance, but you still get that like thick heavy slam in the mid bass. And these are pretty cheap as well, for around like $20-$30 depending on how steep the sale is. And overall, these replaces the CCA trio, so if you want something that is like a bassy all-rounder, dynamic, it's fun, you know, you get the tuning switches, these would be a pretty solid set, and I do recommend them, even though the QC might be iffy because the VADER Pro, I do have a slight channel imbalance. Just watch out, I guess, for the slight QC issues. And then as for the VADER Pros, sorry, this is the GALE. As for the VADER Pros, this is more of a, I want to say more mid-range, more vocal forward approach. It still has the, you know, bounciness, the impact in the sub bass, but this is not as smooth as the DUONIC. I do like the DUONIC more than the VADER Pros, and this has a scoop which I don't like. It kind of like makes it sound a bit unnatural when it comes to the drums, the mid bass. And overall, if it's around the same price, I would just get the DUONIC. I think it's just a better version of the VADER Pros. Then lastly, we got the KZ GALEs, and these are a balanced, clean, more neutral leaning kind of sound. They don't have that much sub bass. The treble, the overall, I guess, fun factor isn't really there compared to the trio or the VADER, but these are pretty smooth overall if you're looking for something cleaner, more neutral leaning, you know, less bass, better for like indie vocals, you know, acoustics. These will do the job. Although again, overall, I do like the DUONIC better, even though this is very cheap though. I think these go on sale for less than like $10. So at that price, it is very hard to beat if you want a clean, balanced sound. So yeah, I would give these a recommendation if you can find these on sale for a very good price. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you found this review and speedrun to be helpful. Thank God this is the last one because I've been working like overtime trying to crank these videos out. Let me know what you guys think of the new releases. Stay tuned for Christmas because I do have an announcement for my collab. But aside from that, I hope you guys have a great holidays. I got some giveaways coming up next, so stay tuned for that. And thanks for watching. I will see you guys in the next one.
Shout out to Dom Q, Rox Cat, B Urac, Disco Scaldus, Walker Standard, Patrick, User, Contain Guava Juice Gains, Mr. Gorillas, Paulie J, Gis Sang Young, Christopher Jackson, Henry Claudia, Son of a Horse, 777ZK, Wizard, Obi, Treble Extended, Frickalicious, Ricardo, Tapasar, Choco Norris, Shim Bakalate, Tomat, FKSRG, Cousin Fat Fat, Julius Phillip, Dead Riddle, Bilha, Nico, Addy, Michael, Trackstar, LL here, Shuri, Ryan, Raphael, I am J-Rack, Ori, June, Hakase, Torcog, Affinity, EGC, Raj, Chimika, Javier, CB952, Gilbog, Ocean219, BC Knight, AK131, MN Gelato, Wad Joe, Yan, Unbounds Armatures, Vitor Kent, Variah Q, Tuna, Edward Yu, Robert McLean, Polar, The Surgeon, Rock Guy, Drave Gaming, Chef Wonky, JRX, Samuel, John Simon, Archie, Beefy Pigeon, Zeph Doom, Peter Walton, Slow Mo Rain, Dulcington, and my name is Jeff. Thank you guys so much for the support.